start with our lesson for today, and we are going to talk about another very important topic of the technology transfer. So this is the new topic. If you recall, in the previous class, we discussed about World Trade Organization, and we discussed about its functions. We discussed about some of the contentious issues. We also discussed about the free trade area and how free trade area is an exception to the principle of most favored nation and the very principle of non-discrimination, and how under the provisions of WTO this is something that is still allowed. So this is what we have done so far. If there are any questions, you can ask the question. Otherwise, we will start with the new topic of international technology transfer. So before we actually begin the discussion about international technology transfer, I would just like to ask you this question. How many of you are from the technology side? You can mention it on chat and I can see it. How many of you are working in the technology domain and how many of you are not? So I think what you can do is you can mention on chat box as to how many of you are in the area of technology. And I hope that you can have a look at the presentation. I've got the prompt that the presentation is now visible to you people. So yeah, so there is just one response that has come from Karthik Chabra, and he says he is not working in the technology domain. Okay, so I assume that rest of you have logged in and are not around. Otherwise, it's very unlikely that out of this group of 35 students, none would be in the technology domain. So you can see over here that we are now dealing with this new topic. Okay, so what exactly is international technology transfer is something that we will see in detail, but I think it is very important for us to acknowledge the fact that if you want real growth, you have to have new technologies. So, economic growth of every nation is linked to the innovative ecosystem that the country has. And the competitiveness of a nation now depends on new technology because it is a most vital ingredient to international competition. These days, the time to market is something which is the most crucial aspect of the success of a new product, and therefore there is a requirement on the part of the nations, their research institutions and the industry to continuously harness new products, new devices through the process of spending time and money on research and development. And it's not just about the scientific push, which is of course vital, which is of course pertinent, because unless we create a culture of scientific curiosity, there will not be any technology transfer. And we are seeing as to how the ongoing inventions and innovations are creating disruption in the business landscape, and technology is becoming outdated much faster. If you just go back to the technology of transistor, it might have survived for about 30 years. Then you come to the technology of we have the recent example of Nokia, which was a market leader in mobile phone And for a long time, I think for about 15 years or so, it was the market leader with a dominant position. And today, of course, nobody would like to go for the, you know, Microsoft owned Nokia mobile device. So technology becomes outdated, one because there are new competitors, two because customers also have their own so-called technology space, and they keep moving from one product to another in search of better utility and satisfaction. So this is how the significance of technology can be seen. And right since the era of 60s and 70s, international technology transfer was considered as one of the critical aspect of international business, because there were many new independent nations and they wanted to have a faster road to industrialization, and they were looking for an appropriate and complete transfer of technologies from multinational companies, which primarily had their origin in the triad market of United States of America, Japan, and Europe. But as you know, there was liberalization of economies. This has lost some of the significance, but still it is one of the major managerial issues when we are dealing with the developing or the emerging world. But then it's not just about emerging world. We all know about the technology transfer between Apple and Samsung, and how at a later point of time they were into a major conflict with respect to the intellectual property sharing. And about this, we will talk further also. So, the process of dissemination of technology from a person or organization that is the owner to another person or organization is what we define as the process of technology transfer. And this can happen between universities to business, between universities and other universities, between different businesses of different size. So you may have a small entity looking for the technology from the large multinational enterprises, and there could be instances where a multinational enterprise may actually find some startup company and find that to be a crucial technology and buy through the process of acquisition or through the process of technology transfer. So both formal and informal system of technology transfer take place. There are instances where overtly there are no technology transfers, but there are technology transfers, particularly if you look at the nuclear technology and some of the other strategic sector technology transfer. So what it requires is sharing of skill, knowledge, technologies, manufacturing methods, samples, flow charts, and various other kinds of diagrams, management systems such as total quality management and Six Sigma, and facilities among the participants. The intent is to ensure that there is scientific and technological development which can be used for the wider benefit of the society through the creation of new products, processes, applications, identification of new materials and services. So technology transfer is important. Technology transfer is a subset of knowledge transfer, and we will also subsequently in some of the other classes talk about knowledge transfer. Then there are two different kinds of technology transfers. We say horizontal transfer, that is movement of technology from one area to another, between one company to another, between one nation to another. Okay, and most of the technology transfer arrangements are horizontal. Vertical transfer occurs when technologies are moved from applied research centers to research and development departments or to the industry. In India, we have a very limited case of technology transfer coming from universities or R&D labs of Indian Council of Agricultural Research or Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR, as you all know, or other such government institution to industry and vice versa. Of course, if you look at the manufacturing of Swaraj tractor, the technology started from the CSIR lab of CSIO Chandigarh, and you all participate. I'm sure all of you are above the age of 21 and you all participate in election, and that technology came from National Physical Laboratory of Government of India, and it is Bharat Electronics Limited, which is a public sector undertaking of Government of India, which is into the process of the development of the ink. So technology came from National Physical Laboratory, which is one of the government sector R&D institution, and this is being delivered through Bharat Electronic Limited, which is an industry, which is a public sector company under Government of India. Another very important issue related to the technology transfer is the concept of international product life cycle model, which was given by Raymond Berman in 1966, and he explained as to how technology moved from the developed nations to the developing nation. And this basic theory was based on his observation of the television industry, and what he found that in stage one, the new products and processes were designed in the labs, and so in 1950s, in the TV set industry, the innovative countries were United States of America. So they had companies like RCA, Zenith, General Electric, and Motorola, and they were designing the product in United States for the US market. And some of the products were exported to Europe. Incidentally, RCA and Zenith, we hardly have any significant innovation or technology coming from these companies. And General Electric and Motorola are still in the market and doing some innovative work. So that is the stage one. In stage two, the production moves to industrialized countries such as Europe and Japan, as either through the local subsidiary of this particular firm, or through the technology transfer to the local firm. Local firm means the firm in the given country where the technology is being transferred. So if you are talking about Japan, so Matsushita, Sony could be the example. Similarly, there are other instances of the transfer to the local firms. And when the transfer happens, there are instances when some or the other level of adaptation to local need fulfillment also takes place. Then you have this third stage. What happens in the third stage is that the emerging developing countries such as Korea and China, of course, in the previous class, if you recall, we discussed as to whether China can still be considered as a developing nation, and as per the new definition, where any country which is having more than 0.5% of share in the global export market cannot continue to be called the developing nation. So many of the countries, including India, China, are to move out of this bracket, and some of the concessions that we were enjoying will no longer be available. So, so countries such as Korea and China then took the lead in the production of TV sets. And why the multinationals in turn decided to move their production facility to these countries? Because they offered cost advantage in the form of low labor cost, and the market was also growing. So both of these factors fueled the process of the dissemination of technology to these developing nations. So from developed, it moved to the other set of developed nations in the second stage, and finally it moved to the new set of developing countries, including Korea, China, and India, which is not mentioned here. But if you talk about China and the transfer of technology to China, you will find that uh, there are two facets of the technology transfer. One, which is about the legitimate rule-based method of technology acquisition in the form of mergers and acquisition, in the form of purchase of a patent, and the enforcement of the competition law in the country. But the other part is that of the failure on the part of Chinese legal and regulatory system to enforce the intellectual property rights protection. And there are allegations that there is a government business collusion, and the Chinese companies actually take the trade secret, and they have the inbuilt mechanism of espionage, and therefore the moment they themselves develop the technology, then they no longer uh, are willing to work with the multinational with which they had the initial round of technology transfer. You all know about the 5G conflict between China and United States of America, and how USA has banned all kind of business with Huawei, with the allegation that this company is involved in widespread espionage of technology from United States of America. In fact, now Google is also wondering that how it is going to, carry on with some of the business relations it has with Huawei, and that is again something that they need to manage. So in the previous class, we discussed about some of the industrial dispute between nations, and this again is pointer to the fact that there will be dispute with respect to technology transfer. So there is a failure of China's regulatory system, and there is a failure on the part of the legal enforcement, and there is a feeling, there is a conclusion that China's technology acquisition practices amount to concerted public-private effort to advance Chinese business interests at the expense of those of its trading partners. Now let's talk about the different forms of technology transfer. So we have what you call as a licensing agreement. In one of the previous classes, we discussed about licensing as to how a party transfers its copyrights or its technology, patent, or maybe some kind of industrial design, or maybe the design for construction to another party for a fee, and that agreement is what we call as the licensing agreement. Then there are instances of what you call as the turnkey project, and I will just take up the issue of turnkey project with you to some extent today, and then maybe in some other class when we will be talking about international tendering process, which is the next topic that we shall take up. Then it could be in the form of a technical agreement with a joint venture company or with one of the local subsidiaries of a multinational enterprise. It could also be in the form of a joint project with some similar level companies, or maybe some government agency, or maybe some R&D establishment. And then it could also be in the form of a sales of equipment, and these are the equipments which will also require some or the other level of information sharing and expertise to be shared in the form of technology transfer. So these are the different forms of what you call as the technology transfer. And there's another classification that we also have, which is about market mediated means of international technology transfer versus the non-market channel of international technology transfer. So Trade in goods and services involve technology transfer through the process of licensing, as we can see over here, and it could be in the form of foreign direct investment or joint venture. So similar to it, but then just the presentation is different. And then you have non-market channels of information, sorry, international technology transfer, which could be through the process of imitation and reverse engineering. Reverse engineering is that you break open the different components of a given successful technology, understand, and then try to incorporate into your process. Sometimes, because of the turnover of the professionals and personnel, the technology can get transferred, because sometimes the employees may have the IPR with them, which they carry to the new company that they join. Similarly, there could be migration of scientific and technical personnel from one lab to another, from one nation to another. And of course, by reading the different patent applications, also sometimes the company can come up with some important technology. So these are the different forms of technology transfer. We often say that the primary issues in technology transfer are related to the appropriateness of technology as well as the completeness of technology. So now let us understand what exactly is the meaning of appropriateness of technology and completeness of technology. We say that technology transfer is appropriate if it fits with the local context. And you know, the classic trade-off is between modern state-of-the-art technology, which requires a solid infrastructure of human capital, as well as the support industries, and a modest, less advanced technology that can be assimilated locally. It is often blamed that global companies transfer old and obsolete technology in order to protect their competitive advantage. But on the other hand, many cases of expensive advanced technology, which we will call as the white elephant, have also been criticized as resource wasting. So when Volkswagen set up the first Western factory of modern cars in China in early 1980s, it would have been difficult to transfer the new model manufactured and sold in Europe at the same time. So this was something which is right, because at that point of time, that was the appropriate technology with which they entered the Chinese market. The state of the road, the network of the supplier, and the volume involved, and the skill level could not have permitted the assimilation of a complex advanced manufacturing system. But over time, the progressive improvement of local conditions make the transfer of modern technologies feasible. And later on, one of the Chinese partner of Volkswagen emerged as a joint venture with General Motors to produce a rather more advanced model than that which was produced with the previous technology. So appropriateness of technology is also a factor of time, is also a factor of the preparedness on the part of the host nation. Then we come to completeness. What does it mean? A technology transfer is complete when the recipient of the technology is able to perform by itself the product of the transfer. Now there is this issue of informational technology. The knowledge embodied in these elements is often non-explicit and calls for a coaching approach to the transfer instead of just shipping equipment or organizing a standard lecture. I mentioned about the transfer of equipment or the sale of equipment. Sometimes even this requires a lot of training, and developing countries are often coming up with this allegation that global companies restrict the transfer to physical content and limit information transfer to a strict minimum, so that in future also they are able to have the bargaining power. Many times these are the allegations against the Russian import of the defense equipments that India was into. that they do not transfer complete technology. Even there is a CAG report about the technology transfer from the South, and how the technology transfer is not happening as per the agreement. So there are, of course, these issues. Now, the interpretation is often too extreme. It is frequently true that engineers in global firm are not fully prepared to cope with the consideration of education and patience that a proper transfer applies, because you know that in many of the developing countries and sometimes the least developed nations, the human capital is not adequately prepared to absorb the technology. Any questions so far? Now, we often say that multinationals are the potential sources of technology transfer, and foreign direct investment is a preferred mode of entry into a market, because that nation, the host nation, can have access to new technology. But here again, the multinational will look at the market size and the growth trajectory of a given industry in that nation. It will also see as to which are the markets that it can use, uh, you know, that it can export using that host nation as the manufacturing base, and whether the technology transfer will yield the kind of international expansion that they are looking at. They will look at human capital base and skill India with more than 7 lakh engineers coming out every year is gaining importance because of this very factor. And then they also look at the domestic R&D capacity. So the domestic R&D capacity also is getting better and better, because we have seen that many of these engineers are going for higher studies, doing MTech and doing PhD, and joining the R&D institutions, and also the R&D centers of the multinational enterprises such as Samsung, Bosch, and Ericsson. Then what is more important is good governance and transparency, and I would add to this trust. In fact, yesterday there was a seminar, a summit hosted by Government of India, and the purpose of that summit was to have collaborative R&D between our diaspora, who is in different nations, USA, Japan, Korea, and some of the other European nations. So how our Indian R&D institutions, our IITs, our IIMs, and other research labs, how they can interact and collaborate with these centers of technology in given areas, such as the fossil fuels, such as renewables, such as photonics, such as quantum computing, and many other technologies. So how Indian homegrown companies and institutions can leverage on the technology transfer, and this technology transfer will come through collaboration with some of the important uh, Indian people who are working overseas, who have created a name in the nation to which they are serving. So there, of course, this question of trust was raised by one of the panelists, that make in India or any kind of technology transfer will not yield the result as long as the foreign investors do not have trust in the Indian system and its delivery. And somehow these days, an impression is being created. I'm using the word, an impression is being created, that not all is well with Indian industry. But if you discount the factor of COVID, I think there are a lot of silver lining as far as India's industrialization is concerned. And we have been able to develop effective infrastructure. But if you are talking about the lessons that we have learned, or we can learn from the technology transfer system that we have seen in the recent years, you will find that there are various concerns, and these concerns range from you know identification of the level of technology. We were discussing about the appropriateness of technology in the previous slide that we referred. So how do you identify what is the required level of technology? And you see, the recipient, let's say in India, may have to depend on the information and the product bulletin supplied by the technology supplier company. Of course, they can also refer to the patents, and they can get some idea as to which could be the potential sources of technology. But it has been seen that there is a gap in terms of what is the appropriate technology and what is finally delivered by the technology transferring company. Similarly, there is no independent agency to advise on the latest technology and how to source those technology. Typically, the Indian companies participate in trade exhibition, and they make personal contacts. Of course, with e-commerce and internet, things are changing, and there is access to a lot of information, and there are missions of different nations who are emphasizing on their new technologies developed by the different companies, and that becomes a potential source of information. But that was not the case earlier. And we discussed about the export of the second level of technology. The concurrent technology is something that we should be looking at. But our experience in India has shown that the multinational enterprises do not share the concurrent technology. We just saw the example of Volkswagen, how it entered China and did not, you know, share the latest product. Of course, there was the issue of appropriateness, but still, it is a fact that no technology transfer no technology supplier will transfer the technology being used by them, and they always prefer to have a transfer of a technology which is already exploited by them, so that they do not create any potential rivals. You all know as to how uh, uh, you know companies such as Motorola and um, entity of Japan, how they have been having issues with respect to the technology transfer whenever they have resorted to any such thing. So there is a problem of absorption, because after the identification, defining technology transfer in the agreement also requires a lot of acumen on the part of the domestic industry, because technology cannot be transferred in one lot through the transfer of document. It has to be done through transfer of design, drawing, additional improvements made by the technology transfer supplier, and providing of the service of the experts, training of the Indian staff at the work of the technology supplier, and all these aspects are to be properly and adequately covered in the technology transfer agreement. This is a lesson that we have learned rather late. So there are definitely issues in the absorption of technology. But the most important and the most difficult task is the indigenization of the technology. While the technology supplier desire that the recipient company should achieve the same level of you know quality to be able to compete in the national and international market, the achievement of this goal is having a lot of practical difficulties. See, you have to acknowledge the fact that the final product quality depends upon the quality of the inputs used and the processes that are to be adopted, and quality of the raw material and components available in the technology recipient country is not always of the same level as that of the host country, and therefore adaptation of imported technology and its indigenization process is not easy. uh, in 70s and 80s, ISO certification mechanism was resorted to, which addressed the problem to certain extent, because there was proper documentation, and adherence to documentation was also ensured. Then comes the issue of the license, and you know through the process of license, you also specify not just the technology and the different components of technology, but also the markets to which products can be sold, which are developed through this technology transfer by the process of licensing agreement. So, a non exclusive license to sell the product outside the country of manufacturer gives the much needed support to make entry into the international market. That is how it should be. And what lends greater support to the technology recipient company is the willingness on the part of the technology support, supplier to source his requirement of parts and component through a buyback provision in the technology transfer agreement. So many times this is what happens, that you know but then the supplier company would look for the quality, because it cannot compromise on the quality level. So it depends on the mutual agreement and understanding between the two partners as to how they evolve products in a way that it is of the international standards, global standard, so that you know uh, the buyback provision can also be undertaken by the company which is providing the technology. Needless to say that the government has a lot to do in terms of support to foreign direct investment and the technology which comes through the foreign direct investment. And the government has to liberalize its policy towards foreign investment, and the new projects that come up should come up with the concurrent technology, and that is again the responsibility of the government. And the government of India has made many changes in the policy and the ease of doing business. How to improvise on the perception is one of the focal activity of the government. Then we have seen in the recent past that other than the government, there are venture capital funds and angel investors, and they have become important source for investment funds, and they also help in getting the technology transfer. Of course, there are difficulties in terms of fundraising, because there are different competitors from all the nations, and the fund will go to the most lucrative technology and the most pertinent uh, technology. And it also depends to a large extent on the partnership and the perception on the part of the investors in terms of the protection and management of the intellectual property rights, such as patents, copyrights, and industrial secret. So, investment in research and development promotes a culture that becomes a breeding ground for entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial ideas. So, this again is something that the government need to focus on. We have Atal Innovation System and some of the other incubator programs for ensuring that Indian companies are able to reach a level of technology where the angel investors and other venture capital funds support them through funding. So we already have the case of Paytm and uh, Ola, Ola and Oyo and many other startups who were given fund and they were able to develop the service through the deployment of information technology to a large extent. Uh, we have not discussed in detail about what IPRs and what are IPRs and what is the significance of IPRs to the supplier companies or the supplier multinational enterprises. And I think before we move further, we need to discuss about the IPR. And I think for today, I will stop at this point and we will take the rest of the aspects of our learning, which is about the intellectual property rights, the different forms of intellectual property rights, and the significance of IPRs and how there has to be a fine balance between the public good as well as the incentive for the innovators to keep on improvising and coming up with better and better technology.